Greetings everyone, this is Ehav from the Chronicles of Ehav, and today's video is going to be a short video about generalizations, rationalist as an insult. So in order to describe what I'm talking about here, this of course, as with some of my recent videos, comes from a forum that I used to be involved in, where, imagine the following. Imagine someone calls you a rationalist. You're a rationalist. I think most people would say, okay, fine. I mean, especially someone who doesn't use the term about themselves would say, okay, well, I'm a rationalist, probably sounds like you're saying I'm being logical. Maybe you're saying I'm being reasonable. You probably are saying that I'm using, some kind of intellectual mindset when it comes to my approach to how I deal with reality in the world. Okay, so I'm fine. If that's what you want to call me, I don't have a problem with that. But then imagine if someone said, you're a strict rationalist. The question was, okay, I'm a strict rationalist. Why couldn't I just be a rationalist? But I'm a strict rationalist. So you may start to wonder, okay, you know, hmm, what exactly is that supposed to mean? So let's say that you wanted to address this a bit. You would say, okay, well, rationalist. Okay, fine, I've got that. Versus the other part, strict rationalist. So you may have to kind of say, okay, well, rationalist versus strict rationalist. You know, what exactly is the difference? Why would somebody, call me a strict rationalist rather than just a rationalist? And even if I don't address myself by either term, why even call me either one of them at all? So then if I look at this a little bit deeper and say, okay, well, strict rationalist. Okay, again, I'm going to stress the strict because the question would be, why call me a strict rationalist? I mean, isn't a rationalist by definition already a strict rationalist? Am I like a rationalist on certain days of the week and not a irrationalist on the other days of the week? But a strict rationalist is someone who's 24/7. They're a rationalist. And that's where the question comes up. Is it similar to, for example, someone who's a vegetarian versus a strict vegetarian, where I would argue that someone, for example, who says they're a vegetarian but they eat meat every once in a while is really not a vegetarian. They may say they have vegetarian tendencies every once in a while, but they're not really a vegetarian unless they are 100% eating vegetables, rather than any kind of animal products, for example. But then imagine that, okay, strict rationalist, but then imagine someone calls you a strict rationalist and, who is adverse to religion. Now, again, let's look at that as a whole, as a one whole statement. Someone described to me as a strict rationalist who is adverse to religion. Now, again, I'm not the type to really say, I'm offended by someone who makes a statement, but it's kind of like, okay, well, wait a minute. This obviously is kind of meant to be some type of insult because, okay, I'm a strict rationalist who is adverse to religion. And the question is, why do you have to put all that in? If I'm supposedly a rationalist, I'm just a rationalist. And then the question is, okay, I'm adverse to religion. How do you get that from anything? So I want to talk about this a little bit because, at first I kind of left it alone, but then I said, okay, when someone calls you out like that and kind of, whether they're trying to insult you or not, you have to respond back. I learned this from a rabbi who was saying that, one of the elements of Lashon Hara is that when someone makes a statement about you that's incorrect, you're required to actually respond to it. You have to respond to it because you can't allow the misinformation to be out there, the incorrect information to be there. So then, if we look at it a little bit further, the issue of a strict rationalist. One of the reasons I take kind of issue with the terminology is the term rationalist is really not applicable to me, specifically not to me, especially if someone's directing it at me, because in reality, most people, even those who are misled, think that they are rational in their views. Second of all, very important is that I don't define myself as a rationalist, like I just said, since those who I've learned from don't use the term to self-define, even if by their actions or by our actions we are supposedly rationalists. It's just not a term I would use, for myself. But again, fine, I'm just a rationalist. That's fine. But a strict rationalist, it's like, why do you have to put this word, the adjective strict in there? What exactly are you getting out of adding strict to it? Because usually when someone is considered strict, it's considered that they're very rigid. They're probably not reasonable. They're probably not very pleasing to be around. Usually, like for kids says, my parents are really strict. It usually means, okay, well, they're not going to let you go anywhere. Even a reasonable place. Like you say, can I go down the street? No. Can I go to the mall? No. That's a very strict parentage. If someone says, look, we want to make sure that you're protected, we care about you, and there are certain locations that you can't go to, and there's certain locations that you have to get our permission for, and then there's certain locations you're free to go where you want. Most people don't call that a strict parent, for example. So continuing in this strict rationalist kind of ideology, number three, even when correctly used about someone, being a rationalist is not an insult because most people would agree that people should be rational. So again, this is not addressing the person's, comment per se, in their own eyes, because in their own eyes they're probably just saying something. But again, um, it's an important point that most people would agree that you should be rational about most stuff. I mean, yeah, again, if you just happen to be irrational about something, as long as it's something safe and not like hurting other people, most people would say, okay, I don't care what he believes or she believes on that. But most people would say that you should at least be rational in most of your reality and dealings with reality. So also, the issue is number four, not believing in something doesn't make someone a rationalist, no more than believing in something makes someone rational, and vice versa. What this means is that, okay, if I say I don't believe in something, I'm not a rationalist because I say I don't believe in something, and I'm also not a rationalist just because I say I believe in something. It just doesn't make any sense. And again, it depends on where does the ultimate definition of rationalism come from. Is there some element of the universe that determines, okay, rationalist, irrationalist, under the circumstances that would make someone in either side of this issue, especially when the term strict rationalist comes up. Number five, studying and investigating facts to the best of one's abilities from a vast array of sources and taking a position is 100% logical. Now, again, logical can be dependent upon each person. Each person may see their own actions as being logical, where they would see the other person as being illogical potentially, because most people who take a position and make a statement about something usually wouldn't make a statement if they considered themselves to be irrational or illogical. So that would basically be like me saying, things about plumbers, that when I'm not a plumber and I don't know anything about plumbers and I don't have any friends who are plumbers. So because I don't have those scenarios, locked in my life, I wouldn't make any comments about, plumbing because, again, by the fact of me making a comment or a statement, it would seem to someone to be that, okay, you obviously think you know something about this, so you believe you're being rational by even making a statement about it. Now, if you're asking a question because you don't know, that's something different. Usually if I don't know, I'm not asking because I'm trying to be rational. And maybe I'm asking because I want to know in order to have a formed opinion. But again, the issue is that if you're going to make a statement, usually you believe you're being rational in the statement if you're making a statement. Number six, it is 100% rational to recognize that there are different views, as well as the ability for all, some, or none of them to be correct or incorrect. What that means is this. You could take a position that to you sounds 100% logical and rational, and you could be completely wrong about it. You could take a position that you could say is 100% logical and rational, and you could be completely correct about it, or you could be have certain elements of what you're saying to be correct, certain elements of what you hold by to be correct, and certain elements can be wrong. At the end of the day, there are certain things that you could easily say, okay, well that's 100% wrong, and there's certain things you could say, okay, well at the moment we don't really have information either way. So there's more than one way this thing could happen. Now I accept personally this particular, methodology or this particular, form of logic or this particular group of ideas, but that's just what I accept until something better comes along and proves me wrong. And then again, I'm talking about in a previous video what proof would mean. Proof doesn't just mean you say that you're wrong and then that's proof, or you have this bit of information and that's proof. It means that I have to go through all the information and make sure that what the standards I put in place for proof are met. And again, my standards could be wrong, and that's me being honest more than anything else. So that's me being, if I'm a strict rationalist for saying that, then so be it. That would seem like most people would say that's rational, even people who are irrational in their actions. So number seven, lastly, even the most mystical and magically inclined people consider themselves and their views to be rational. As an example, there are people who believe that, for example, there are people with psychic powers. Now, they believe that they're being rational in saying that these things exist. There are also people who say that no, these things have not been proven to exist and they're not repeatable whenever they are supposedly shown to, shown, if you will, or displayed. So therefore, that side also says they're rational. So one of the things that sometimes gets thrown out there with people who have mystical or magical beliefs is that, you're just being rational. You're a rationalist. As if that's a bad thing because of the fact that someone may not believe in, whatever myth, or magic, they believe in. Where my thing is that as far as I'm concerned, I don't really hold by the idea of something being mystical, magical, if it's proven to be true and repeatable. But that's, again, my personal standard. So, someone may say, okay, this mystical belief leads to this. Well, okay, fine. If it leads to that, that's fine. But again, for me to follow it, I'd have to see that is systematically leads there, because what if it's wrong? And what if it's wrong in a way that's destructive to me and other people? then obviously I can't just jump on board if it's destructive. So it'd be like someone saying, go talk to this psychic. They can help you maneuver the future. Well, I'm not going to go talk to a psychic if I already know that there's some problems with that. And especially as a Torah-based Jew, I'm not going to talk to a psychic because it's against the Torah. We don't need those, things. And, also anytime that people I've known who have put their trust in those kind of people and those kind of ideas, they always end up failing. Now someone could say, well, magic. Well, again, depends on what magic is. What is mysticism? What is magic? Depends on what it is. I'm using a computer right now to do this video. Maybe that's mystical and maybe that's magical to certain types of people. I have a bottle that I'm drinking water out of someone made. Maybe that the process of making a glass bottle is mystical and magical. Again, depends on what it is. So. So then this brings us to the next part of the statement. Okay, so already we've dealt with the issue of being a strict rationalist, which, again, maybe a person could say, okay, I'm not really concerned about that. But then when a person adds on that you're a strict rationalist who is adverse to religion, well, that just to me strikes that somebody's trying to make a statement about me by saying that. And anybody using all of these adjectives to describe someone usually seems, in my opinion, and I could be wrong about this, I could be completely wrong, but it just sounds like someone's making a statement by making all these statements together. And the reason is very simple, especially with this part of it. So simply put, if you've watched any of my videos like long term, you know that I don't personally use the English terms religion or religious to describe myself, since the terms in English have meanings that I don't associate with, such as blind faith, lack of understanding of science, or doing away with logic when a religious belief is proven to be false or impossible. What this means is the following. If someone were to try to convince me of a religious, idea, and that idea has no evidence behind it whatsoever, has no standing in reality whatsoever, and it's visibly, proven that it isn't reality, I'm not going to assign myself with that. If in order to be religious or have a religion, you have to have blind faith. I don't associate with that then, because I don't go by the idea of blind faith. There may be some things that I don't fully understand or know about, but I don't jump into them with blind faith. I have to have some knowledge of understanding. And even in the Hebrew language, most of what is talked about in the Torah, in fact, quite all of it actually, in ways described by a number of the Rishonim, it puts away the idea of blind faith. You're not supposed to go by blind faith. You're not supposed to trust people just because they say something. You're not supposed to trust something just because it's written somewhere. You're supposed to investigate it and understand it and make sure that you have the most logical approach to it. And that's one of the reasons that, according to a number of Rishonim, that the Torah was given as a mass revelation to the entire Jewish people. So that way, it takes away this idea of blind faith in one person who says, "Well, this big event happened just to me," and you have to believe them just because it's them. Where if everybody experiences and says, okay, look, we were all at this event, we all saw the same thing, we all walked out with the same description of it, at that point, it takes away the idea of blind faith. Now, future generations may have to say, okay, well, I'm going to have to logically look through and make sure that this is the reality that happened to my ancestors. But, again, it's kind of hard to say, in a sense, to just throw it out, as like blind faith when there are so many requirements for it to be something that you have to know as a logical approach to knowing it. Further to that point, there's some people who would say that, okay, religion, you have to like throw away, you have to have a lack of understanding of science in order to be religious. Well, I went to university for electrical engineering, which I had to learn physics, I had to learn advanced mathematics, I had to learn chemistry, I had to learn a number of different disciplines as a part of being an electrical engineer. And even, some of them I don't interact with 100% anymore in my regular day-to-day job. I am involved in research, to the point to where I have to have a level of science understanding to do the job that I do every day. So, further, in the last part of this, in modern Hebrew, the word dot or dati, which is used in modern Hebrew to like denote religion or religious people, in ancient Hebrew, it doesn't mean religion at all. In ancient Hebrew, the words dot and dati actually mean like a statute or a rule of law. So, for example, let's say that someone says I'm a law-abiding citizen, and they say, well, why are you a law-abiding citizen? Because of the fact that, when I drive a car, I follow the rules and regulations that are applied to driving. I have a valid driver's license, I have a valid insurance card, I have a valid registration of my car, and I drive within the speed limits, and I do so within the rules that I was taught by the system in place as being the rules of driving. I follow those things. Well, in ancient Hebrew, you could be considered a dati person, or if you will, in modern English, a religious person, because you're religiously following, the rules set down by the standards of the nation that you live in, especially with the rules that are, rules that you have to abide by. So for example, I'm not a senator. I'm not a politician, so I don't abide by the rules of politicians because I'm not one. But anything that deals with a regular guy working in a high-tech firm, living in a certain area, well, those I have to follow, and that makes me, if you will, Dati. So the same way with the Torah. The Torah was given by the creator of all things, and again, that's the claim of the Jewish people, from ancient times. So I follow, those things that the creator of all things placed in front of me, and I go through and try to prove that that's the case with all of those things. It isn't just something I accept by blind faith. I research all the time, which is one of the reasons I even do these videos, because many of these videos are based upon the research that I've done over time. So again, this is, Ehav Ever from the Chronicles of Ehav Ever, and I thank you for listening, and take care, and bye.